Okay, good morning, fellow yogis. Sporting my 16-year-old Canada shirt, which will soon become a pajama shirt. As you can see on the back, the tag looked nice, but it's kind of ripped up the shirt. But yeah, this is a good time to wear it. As you know, it is FIFA time and almost Canada Day. And so welcome to the last class. Let's start with 3 prostrations, where we're giving thanks for the teachings that have come down through 2,500 years, 60 generations of teachers. Body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. And then we can move into the opening prayers. Always learn something new. This week I learned that I can turn the camera so I don't have to look at myself when I talk. For I have found, I don't know if you have, found it very distracting. So, and as I was filming a tennis class this week, the partner's like, turn it the other way so you don't see the screen. It's a better camera. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So, let's opening prayers. Let's do it in Tibetan today. Sashi Puki Jukshin Metok Tram Viram Lingshi Yende Genpa Di Sangye Shindu Mite Uwargi Drokun Namdak Shingla Dupar Shog Idam Guru Ratnam Madlakam Niratayami. And now for the last one. The refuge, which, remember, it is asking us to go for refuge. The Buddha, his teachings, the people who have seen the direct perception of emptiness, and by the goodness of the 6 perfections, giving and the rest. That's what it means. May I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. So now that I explained that in English, 3 times in Tibetan. Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jangshu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Jupar Sho Sangye Chudang Soki Choknam La Jangshu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Jupar Shok Sangye Judang Soki Choknam La Jangshu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Dakni Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Jupar Shok. Okay. My loyal student has somehow found the right time to walk off, so she won't be joining us, but I'm keeping the door open so she doesn't keep banging open and closed. And so yeah, this is the last class of this series, Proving Past and Future Lives. And if you listen to the other two, you remember that there's been a lot of proofs. 2 classes ago by Kedrup J, one of the most famous disciples of Jason Kappa. And then last week was Master Dharma Kirti, the grandfather of logic, who's given 10 proofs. The last one is what we're kind of focusing on today. Consider the mind of a normal person at the time of death. Their mind will cross the line into a future mind because the state of mind at death has desire. So today's class kind of delves a little more deeply into it. So I think I'm going to just go right into it. I don't know if you found it maybe a little less interesting. I have to say, I felt it myself, kind of going through the proofs. And so I kind of took a little longer with this class. I mean, usually film it on Saturday, but I took a bit of time and I actually listened to, if you ever listen to the recordings on the website, usually Geshe Michael Roach does a class 11, which is basically a review of the first 10 classes. So I'm guessing some of you haven't done your homeworks, but after each class there's about 7 or 8 questions related to the homework, related to the readings, or to the notes, to the class, what I covered, the information I covered in the class. And then after those 10 classes, so you have like 70 questions, he's reduced about half of them. He's reduced 3 quiz questions for every homework questions. So then you get about half of them as quiz questions, the most important of each class, right? And then the final exam for each course, which you're supposed to score 80% or more, is a final 20 to 25 questions out of those quiz questions. So they're the ones that he feels are the most important. And so after kind of going through the information in the class, I'm going to go through that because I don't even remember teaching it, some of the info in the first few classes, right? So, and I think, it's kind of like the greatest points, which I'd like which he would like us to remember going. So I'll do that last. So, the last proof that there is a future mind, that there is past lives and future lives, which you may believe already, is that the state of mind at death has desire. So remember, a lot of these words have more than even though they are translated, they have a little more meaning than what we might just think of what desire might be. So on the email I sent you, there was a picture called the Buddhist Wheel of Life. I have to say I haven't looked at a lot of them. I've heard about this, and that they are kind of 12 pictures which are supposed to show how why we are continuing to be reborn. So there's 12 pictures. They call it 12 links of dependent origination, right? So they're not numbered. I mean, you could look at the email right now, look at that picture, expand it a bit. The second one is link number 2. It should be a picture of man making pots, and that's supposed to refer to karma that we collect or create during our life. So I'm going to explain a few of these links that Geshe Michael Roach thinks are important to kind of explain desire. He jumps to number 7, a guy with an arrow in his eye. Ouch. And that's actually just to show an ability to feel. Oh, look at this. Look at this. I have a student here. Oh, are you coming? Coming? Oh, look at that. Oh, no. I'm not gonna. Anyway, she's listening, and that hopefully will help her have a good rebirth. Based on ability to feel. Number 8, a man is feasting, pigging out, and that refers to craving, which we're going to describe a little bit more, which is also leads to number 9, a monkey grabbing fruit, which is grasping. Now both of these, craving and grasping, leads to number 10, a pregnant woman, picture there, or man and woman lying together. So I guess sometimes the picture is a little bit different. And this represents very ripe karma that can make you take a rebirth. And this is the karma from link number 2, the first one I described. But it's kind of like they say this one is like the match that ignites the dynamite. You know, like you need a match to light up the little string leading to the dynamite. Dynamite's already been created from your karma, link number 2, but number 10 is, number 8 and 9 are the kind of the triggers to light it. Number 11 is a woman giving birth, and number 12 is old age and death. So once again, Dharmakirti is saying, without desire you won't be reborn, and if you don't have desire in the mind at death, your past karma won't be triggered. So let's see, are we describing here now? Yeah, we're going to explain a little bit more about the difference between craving and grasping. The links, one way to also see the links is that number 1 to 7 are kind of like the development of our body and our senses, kind of like us growing up, which leads us to have emotions and feelings, either good or bad. And then that leads us to not to want to lose a feeling we like, wanting to lose a feeling we don't like. I think I've told you about kind of the funny karma of, things we like might lead to things we don't like even. You eat something that you like, and if you eat too much of it, you won't like it anymore. You actually get sick of it. It doesn't bring you more pleasure. So, as I told you how much I enjoy playing tennis, playing competitively, brings about this uncomfortable feeling for me, like not wanting to lose, wanting to be better, and that desire to win and beat someone makes me tense, and that makes me play not very well, which then leads me to feeling opposite of what I supposedly wanted, to feel superior, feel better. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm feeling right now as I have a competitive match later today. So here's an interesting comment. Most human endeavors, hopefully you agree with this one, are based on not wanting to be separated from what you want. This is the trigger that triggers karma. And so 3 types of craving, link number 8. There is one they call desire craving, a craving that desires not to lose an attractive object. I think we can all relate to that. Something we like, we don't want to, craving. As they say, humans, our rebirth as a humans usually means we have a strong craving for food and sex. Craving for food is one you hear quite often now. Fear craving, another second one. The craving that wishes to avoid unpleasant objects. I can definitely, as I said, give you a good example of that. And then the third one, this one's important, the craving for existence. The craving that craves for yourself at the moment of death, that you fear you are ending your existence. And I think I've also shared, I've been hit a few times by a vehicle, a car on my bike. I did not get that sense, maybe I didn't have the time, maybe I would feel that craving. I was lying in a hospital bed and, surrounded by loved ones, and then not wanting to disappear, right? I can definitely relate to that. I hope you can too. This is the craving that triggers rebirth, right? So what's the difference between craving, link number 8, and grasping, link number 9? They say grasping, it's the next one, is the craving, but intensified to a very high degree in the last moments of life. Supposedly a lot of us have this. Supposedly as we die, our mind is separated from our body, and there can be, tremendous grasping, especially if we see the loved ones around us, weeping and sad, and us not wanting to go. I've heard of, I don't say this is a Buddhist thing, but I've heard of how some people who are, grasping so strongly that they don't continue into the next world, into the bardo, for another rebirth. They stay as ghosts, and supposedly that's why, some people may see or hear, experience ghosts in a home because the owner there has not wanted to leave, and then are upset when someone else is in their home. So it's this grasping to life, which is the root of our wheel of life and rebirth. It's not just this desire and fear craving, which maybe we won't have at the moment, but it's this third one that Dharma Kirti is talking about that leads us to this rebirth. Because they're saying if getting rid of any kind of wrong view, could stop your rebirth, then at the beginning of this direct perception of emptiness, the path of seeing, you won't have to take a rebirth again. So people who, see the direct perception of emptiness, they see the way things are, shouldn't have to if that was enough. But it's this craving again. So another thing that Geshe Michael Roach wants to explain a little bit more is the 4 ways of us perceiving ourselves. Because this craving is kind of explained, this grasping is explained through this. So 4 ways of perceiving ourselves. One is just, they say the unanalyzed, unchecked conventional me. Just saying I, example is, even though the Buddha might not have anything, when he was alive, he had a begging bowl, he had his robes, and so, if it was stolen, there is an I, and they say just noticing that is okay. It's a valid perception. There's nothing bad about it. The problem the second way we see ourselves, which is a problem, is seeing ourselves as self-existent, right? Believing myself to be self-existent, that we are out here, that people see us as existing, that, we are, they say, the common myth is that Buddhists don't want anything. But the truth is, why you're maybe watching, listening to this video, and why I'm doing this is that we're wanting actually to be happy, but permanently, not randomly according to our karma, and, up and down as things are happening in our life, but permanently. But when we see ourselves as self-existent, as kind of me, we are definitely, and we see that things out there are self-existent. We may do things which like trying to find the perfect partner, trying to be healthy, to be wealthy, have a family, have toys, go out there and try to get things outside of us, believing those things are going to make us happy. Right? So when the truth is, those things will only make you happy if you have the karma to, For many of us, we might have thought we found our perfect partner somewhere along the way when we made our vows. Maybe now we don't see them as being so perfect, healthy. We've probably all tried many different things, believing that it will make us healthier. And some of those things have worked for us, and we continue doing it, and others don't, and we don't, though it may work for other people. Right? Wealthy, the same. Probably the start of our adult journey, we all believed, money can buy us things that will make us happy, and hopefully, we've all experienced that having more wealth is not necessarily going to make us happy. We've seen that in other people too. Family's the same, you know. We see people unhappy with a family, see people happy without a family, right? So on and on. If you do these deeds and you're ignorant of that things are self-existent, this is what will cause us trouble. This will cause us a rebirth. Third one is someone who has seen emptiness, right? This direct perception of emptiness, which is a goal for many Buddhists who haven't yet. That after this 15-20 minute perception, they no longer believe that things are self-existent, yet they still see it that way. You know, that they will still see things out there, but they won't believe those are the things that make them feel what they feel. So they say an Arya is someone who has seen the direct perception of emptiness, but is not a full Buddha yet, hasn't gotten rid of all mental afflictions in his mind. So they would fall into this third category. And they are someone who unfortunately will still have a rebirth. You know, you have the direct perception of emptiness, and you can have up to 7 more rebirths. Though if you work on the tantric path, the secret path, you can be enlightened, a Buddha in one lifetime, what I'm trying to do. So, fourth type of way of perceiving self is someone who no longer sees or believes themselves to be self-existent. And the only 2 people who are like that are Buddhas, or what they say, arhats. So those who have gotten rid of all mental afflictions, right? And they don't have a rebirth, you know. An arhat, just to note, if it doesn't have bodhicitta, the desire to help all beings, is not completed their path. And you know, to actually be a Buddha, they almost have to kind of start back from the beginning. But if they have bodhicitta in their heart and they have cleared up all their mental afflictions, then they're on their way to being a Buddha. So it is the second and third one, seeing yourself as self-existent, believing yourself to be self-existent, or even if you don't see yourself as, believe yourself as self-existent, but you see yourself, those are the 2 types of rebirths that trigger karma and rebirth. And this is the innate nature of grasping that we need to get rid of. Right? So, Geshe Michael Roach says, don't, you know, think it's a bad thing again to want to be happy, but the desire that it's a self-existent me wanting self-existent things outside of me to be happy, that is craving. So his last point is, if you were to give up seeing yourself as self-existent, where on earth could it happen? How could you ever take rebirth? If you get rid of the inborn form of ignorance, how could you ever take rebirth? So that is the info for class 10. Let me just see how much time, in case I don't get to go over everything that Geshe Michael Roach says was important in this 10 classes. But Sema, that was one of the things in the first classes. The Tibetan word Sema, or pramana, what does it mean? A correct and valid perception. It's one that we have if we're not drunk, if we're not intoxicated, you know, what we have with most things with our five senses. And it's a good message in that he says, Buddhas will only say things that they have a sema about. And what he means is that, there are many things we may have heard of, believe, but that we don't really know. And so if you want to share your opinion, to make sure you preface it with I think, instead of I know. Definition of valid perception is a fresh, unmistaken state of mind. And a person with a valid perception, who is a Buddha, is one who cannot lie, right? And they should have a valid perception about it. So there are two levels of sema. One is a direct perception, that's through your senses or your direct thought about it. And then there is the indirect perception, which is by using logic or deductive reasoning. A lot of what we do. Easy example, you see me drinking something from this cup. You can probably deduce there is some liquid in there. We do this all day. What is the Buddhist definition of existence? Anything that is perceived by a sema. Yeah. And, this is good to just realize that we don't really have, we can't really say for sure if Buddha exists. We have never, had direct perception of, maybe you have, but I haven't, of a Buddha. Supposedly what gives us the belief of what Buddha teaches is simply, what he said about life is suffering. That, we see people getting old, no matter how healthy you are, getting old, getting sick, dying. Nobody seems to have broken that cycle that we've seen. Things always uncertain. We don't know what it will be like, even if we, whether it can say with a lot of certainty something will happen, and it may not. So what is this purpose of Buddhist logic? Why was this discussed in the early classes, and why is it used? And Buddha is saying only me or someone like me should judge another, or else you will fall, meaning you go to a lower realm. And there is a story I heard which was quite interesting. It said a Buddha appeared on a random planet in the universe and started teaching and taught many people who were really open to the teachings there, and continued to teach. Monasteries grew, monks ran and taught and learned at these monasteries. And these monasteries are usually set a certain distance from the city, not so close to the city to have a bit of separation, so they're not so influenced by city life. And at that time, I think this original Buddha had, after millions of years, decided he could leave and appointed some regent to kind of be in his watch. And this regent, to try to, share the teachings, went into the village with his disciples to teach the people. And at the monastery, there was a monk. The monk kind of witnessed, some monks with females, and got quite worried, and declared, made a rule that monks were no longer supposed to go into the city. The regent obeyed the new rule, but after a while, after seeing the villagers revert back to selfish ways, decided to leave the monastery with his disciples and set up another and go into the city to teach again. So what happened to this monastery, this monk who set up the monastery, who set up this new rule? Well, supposedly in his next life, he went straight to hell and was in hell for thousands of years. What is the catch to the story is that this monk who was in the hell was actually the Shakyamuni Buddha. And that Shakyamuni Buddha told the story, says, that was me because I had judged another. You judged the regent, you judged the other disciples without knowing exactly what happened. And so this is why he's saying that unless you're a Buddha and you can read the minds of others, you never know if others are emanations or if they're doing something that you don't know the full story about. So yeah. 2 levels of reality. There's evident reality, things you sense with your 5 senses, and hidden reality. There's also deeply hidden, which is, they say in examples like karma, the workings of karma. We don't seem to know, we haven't heard from the Buddhas, exactly when a karmic thought or word or action ripens. We do know that, and we'll talk about in the next course, how karma can ripen faster. How we can purify it. Obviously, if you have some bad karma, you've done some. But yeah. Master Dignaga's opening statement, he wants us to remember. I bow down to the person who has these 5 qualities: protector, those gone to bliss; teacher, those who wish to benefit sentient beings. And so remember, these 5 words are code for how to become a Buddha. And that path leading to one who knows, who's omniscient, who knows everything, starts from having great compassion. Having great compassion. And so Geshe Michael Roach wanted to clear up that the different types of compassion. One is the normal compassion that we may have for those we care about, is wishing them to not suffer. Isn't that true? Next level is called great compassion. And there's kind of like 2 types, subtypes. You're wishing all beings could be free of suffering. Again, not just those close to you, but also taking responsibility yourself to save these beings. That you, even if nobody helps you, nobody is gonna work on the path you'll do this yourself. And the final type of compassion, they say, is holy great compassion. And that is the compassion of an enlightened being, a Buddha. And that, without having to think about it, they are wanting to help all beings. They are going to emanate to be, maybe this video you're listening to, watching, your partner, your coworker, not just the ones you like, but the ones who trigger you, trying to teach you something, family members. Okay. So three methods to see that Buddha is correct. One is he doesn't contradict. He doesn't say, how do we know that what Buddha said is correct? Is that he doesn't contradict what you know to be correct directly. Again, is saying life is suffering. Is that different than what you can observe? Second one, doesn't contradict what you deduce in your mind. Third one is doesn't contradict what he has said before. Now this is the third one that sometimes people go, well, he said different things. And of course, the reason was that he was teaching to many groups of people with different levels of understanding. So, at times, they said Buddha was talking figuratively, that he said to some of the lower schools that things do exist. There is some form of existence to them. Though in the highest school of Buddhism, the Mahayanas, they're saying that everything he taught to those lower schools is all figurative. That the only literal thing, he said, is that things don't exist out there. They only exist as a projection from our past karma. And so how do we know if that is true? It's to know what is his intention. The famous quote, kill your mother, kill your father. He said that as a memorable line so that we'll remember about not having attachments. If he just said don't have attachments, probably wouldn't remember that message. If what Buddha says offends what you know to be true, you see this piece of paper, see it's green, I say it's red, you say it's green, I say it's red. Well, on my side, this is what I see. There's a compelling need, so this is coming back to the same as like the intention, for some people who weren't able to, he didn't feel would be able to understand emptiness. He did need to say there's a level of existence outside of you that makes up the things you see. What does a person need to be omniscient, to know? It's not important to know, every species in the ocean, every star in the universe. But what we do need to know is what to take up and what to give up. And what to take up would be, actually what to give up, maybe I should go first, is the first two Arya truths. Give up what is suffering. Life is suffering. Give up on life. And to give up the source of suffering. It's ignorance, the ignorance of us seeing things as existing outside ourselves, the innate ignorance that's we're born with because it happened from our past life. It comes from our past life. And we won't get that until after you've seen the direct perception of emptiness, So what to take up? Take up is the cessation of the path, and then to follow the path. Again, what evidence does a normal person have that Buddha is unerring, that doesn't is the first Arya truth. The life is suffering, because the other three truths are ones that we cannot perceive directly. And then as we moved on to the causes of proving past lives, what this course is about, what is definition of material cause? That's which turns into something else, kind of like the seed that turns into the tree. So again, why can't the cause of our mind that is clear, aware, can go, if I tell you to close your eyes and go to Pluto, you can be there. Tell you to shrink down to the smallest particle we know, and what makes up an atom, a quark, you can go there. There's no way to contain your mind. Why is it not supposedly living tissue, made up of living tissue? And here's an interesting thing I didn't think of, that they're saying one way to see living tissue is actually our whole body is really like our five senses. And think about your skin, it's just kind of like exists so that you can feel temperature, feel things, that we are kind of like, you think of our body as every part of us is just a way for our five senses to connect out there. So really the question is saying, if we are these five senses, is that what makes up our mind? Is that the cause of our mind? Well, if all five were, then if we lose one sense, we lose our eyes, lose our hearing, smell, we lose our mind, which is not true. And if only one of our senses makes up our mind, using the example of our strongest sense, our visual, again, if we lose our vision, is our mind affected? No, we just had you imagine with your eyes closed where your mind could take you. So, another proof he wants us to remember is or that if our mind was part of our eye, that with our eyes closed, our mind should be able to see something as clearly as them with our eyes open. So if you look at the screen, you close it, you should see me as clearly as with your eyes open, which definitely is not true. Right? So it shows that our mind is not come from one sense. So why can't the mind at birth be physical elements? Be made up of atoms from the periodic table. For similar, the previous proof, if it was a combination of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, some special formula, then if one element is missing, then our mind should be missing, which is not true. And that if just one thing were required, then the mind should resemble that. Like, just say iron was required to be, was the main cause of our mind, then our mind should be like iron in some ways. And another proof he wants us to remember is, why is the cause of your mind not from your parents, from other minds? Well, though we may share some qualities, some characteristics with our parents, we don't have the same mind, don't have the same abilities as our parents. So, again, coming back to the last few points of this class, is that at our moment of death, why does our mind lead to another mind? Why does one moment of mind lead to another moment of mind? Why does it not just die like our body? Well, our mind doesn't operate like our body, and it continues. So it came from something similar. So why would it not continue after? And that Dharmakirti is saying that because our state of mind has desire, craving, grasping, not just to things we like or avoiding things we don't like, but this innate desire for existence, seeing ourselves as self-existent, that is what leads us to a rebirth. That is what we need to get rid of to no longer have a rebirth. So the final point is, it's fine to want paradise, but you need to perceive yourself the right way, or else you'll be doing wrong things to get what you want. For you to get more health, more wealth, more happiness, yeah, you can ask ChatGPT, your friends, family, and they'll all give you different ways to achieve those things. But Buddhist way will be plant the seeds for those, help someone with those things so that you'll get the results of them. And so the repetition, that story I told you about Shakyamuni being that monk who set the rule on that planet or for that monastery, is repeating, the purpose of logic, why logic is so important. Only I or someone like me should judge another person, or else they will fall. And a Buddhist's main job is not to judge others, what they did wrong, but is to clean up our own mind. They say a person who goes into his own mind is greater than a bodhisattva, someone who helps others, who teaches the 10 virtues to others. So that is what I'm hoping to do this coming week. The teacher is leading a retreat on Bowen Island for a week. And then after that, I will be visiting family in Toronto, and then preparing for my first 1 month long retreat. I've done 2 weeks, but this is part of the tantric path to do 4 1-month retreats, where part of it will be doing 100,000 mantras, repeating that mantra. This is why you see Buddhists with these malas. There's 108 beads, and every time you do one, you kind of click through. And so one mala, one is supposedly 100 mantras. They say you always make like 8 mistakes. So doing 100,000 in 1 month. So that comes to about 3,000 a day over 4 sessions. 750 in a session. So that's what's coming up in end of August to September. And then after I return, we'll start with how karma works in mid-October, take us to December break. So hopefully, if you haven't listened to some of the other classes, please do so. I have sent the meditations for emptiness. Maybe I'll attach that too. But if you have time, do the homeworks, meditate daily, and plant good karma. So let's do our closing prayers. Actually, just remember, on class 10, when there's another course remaining, you don't do closing prayers. There is no goodbye, just another hello. So let us just end with our 3 prostrations, giving thanks for the teachings. Body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. Body, speech, and mind. Thank you for listening and learning, and we'll see you in October. Namaste.